Hey guys, so I know it's been a while since I've last posted, and I said I was gonna be regularly posting after the video. Pretend I never said any of that, but yeah. So today I thought I'd do a tutorial, but more on a serious note, which is a few tips and tricks on how to spruce up your spruce builds. Yes, pun intended. It's kind of funny. Okay, so first we've got 5 block corners. So typically when you're making a spruce build, I'm talking about really basic builds. I'm not a professional builder. This is just some tips I might share with you. So 5 block corners when you're making maybe a survival base or whatever. I highly recommend making 5 block corners specifically because of the fact, number one, it looks better. You have more more tallness to it, and primarily for the fact that the lanterns do not inhibit walking or jumping. They are 3 blocks up, because if you were to perhaps maybe make this, let's say that the log was coming out through here. Now the lantern is gonna be a bit, it looks really awkward, even the pillar over here. It looks very awkward if you were to make it for like lower than 5 blocks. So highly recommend making 5 blocks. You can make it taller, but then obviously you're gonna have to experiment with different building techniques, because when you go up that a bit higher, you're gonna have more space in between, and you're gonna have more tallness to your build. So you're gonna have more of like a, perhaps maybe making a clock tower, for example. It's gonna be a bit different to how you would normally have it. Now another tip I would recommend is filling up the space in between, because space in between walls, you're typically either gonna have a window or you're gonna have nothing. Or if you're making another one, I don't know, maybe you have like a back door going into a garden, you might have a vine wall. But like I said, this is gonna be the basic of basic builds. Let's say you just have a house and you just want to make it look nice. I highly recommend decorating a bit. What I typically do is make like this detail over here, just to get the sort of gradient in between having the log corner, sorry, and going into the rest of the details over here. As you can see, then I have a few pillars, and primarily I use trapdoors over here. Trapdoors are your best friend when you're building, and I mean, sometimes I would sort of put pillars over here, but since this is sort of come into like over here, it's not gonna be one. I don't know the exact word for it, but since we've come into two, it would look a bit weird if I were to do something like, I don't know, something like this. I mean, you could obviously style it, but what I decided on was making two stairs and a 4 trapdoors in between, and it makes a nice sort of like hull integrity, if you understand what I mean. Sort of like you have pillars supporting the main frame up here, and you have it connecting to the ground. In my opinion, it makes a nice style. As you can see, don't leave sides bare. Sometimes I like to use fences, like in these awkward positions where sort of I don't want to take away, like if I were to put a trapdoor here, it would kind of like make this stripped log over here kind of non-visible. But if I were to use a dark oak, not dark oak fence, if I were to use a spruce fence, it would still create a bit more depth over here, a bit more detail, but it prevents the spruce log from being obstructed. Right now, onto a. Also, please note this is just a small like a small snippet of a build, because I'm just showing you some basic details. I'm not showing you how to make a full build. Maybe I'll show you in a future video, but this is just some tips and tricks that you can incorporate onto your present builds or builds you plan on making. So this is another tip. This is like making squashed entrances or any walls. Over here I'm demonstrating entrances. As you can see, I've made two different builds, one which is squashed and one which is a bit extended. I tried making them the same style, but obviously when it's a bit more squashed, it's harder to make it as detailed, if you understand what I mean. So over here you can see it's a bit awkward, like, considering that the door has very little space to have like stuff incorporated into it. Like the only detail that's associated with this door is this, which is just a basic frame, and it kind of prevents it from reaching its maximum detail, in my opinion. Also note over here the 5 block frames. Also, I've also found out that in between the frames, like because you're gonna have the logs protruding out, I recommend putting a slab here rather than having it there like that, or even a trapdoor works, or whatever you find. Like sometimes I would put a spruce fence maybe, but yeah, having that makes it look a bit better, in my opinion. Also, I highly recommend if you're making a window, put some bushes underneath. Just makes that, or even berry bushes can work if you make it work enough, but good enough. But as you can see, it looks a bit squashed. It looks a bit awkward compared to this. Now, obviously, this is gonna have more detail because it's kind of like sort of like it's. I'm not trying to sort of say like make this worse than this on purpose, but like I tried as hard as I could to make this as detailed as possible. I could definitely do more, but I felt very little like inspiration, and it was kind of not very fun to make this. But this I really enjoyed making. As you can see, just by giving it a couple blocks extra, we have exceeded we've exceeded the amount of detail and looks compared to this. As you can see, we've got 1 extra glass pane like row. We've got 2 double doors as well. But yeah, as you can see, making it just by adding a few blocks to width can genuinely make the build a bit better. Now, obviously, you're not gonna make it like a kilometer that way and a kilometer that way, because that's just unrealistic. But just by adding a few blocks can make your build a bit better. So if you're struggling, like all the centers, stuff seems kind of squash, I recommend building out a few blocks. It really does help in my experiences. And another important thing to know is imagining your build in layers. Now, using this style of build that I always use, you've got obviously down here you got the frames, etc., but then you have the top layer, which is a gradient in between this bottom layer and the frame. Then you've got the frame over here, like you've got the thing that protrudes out of the log, because having a bare log looks like, I'll do it here since there's less blocks. Having a bare log like this combined with this kind of looks a bit uncomfortable for me. And I don't know how this build was, something like this. But just by adding a few blocks like this, makes it look better. It's like but you still want to allow the viewer to look and see that there's logs behind, because it gives that sort of background for the frame or whatever this is called. I'm just pulling words out my ass. But as you can see over here, try and leave as little log skin showing from the frame. Obviously you can lose logs protruding out, like I don't know, something like this. But yeah, and another thing to note is the flow of your frame. So up here should typically match, like as you can see, we have 2 sections. We have the door section and we have the frame section. As you can see, I made this layer over here sort of flow down with this. It sort of matches with this, because if you have a very rigid frame, like if I were to use this pattern over here, it would create a very, very uncomfortable feel for the eyes, because it's looking down seamlessly and then it's just sort of abrupted by this bit over here, because sort of rather than being able to go down fully and the frame is fully symmetrical all around, this up here has to be symmetrical with this, and this part has to be symmetrical with this, if you understand. Yes. Doors, I mean, just using the frame similar to back here helps out a lot. Also, don't forget lighting. Lighting is pretty important when you're making builds. as well. Like I made a thing over here, uh, because one thing to note is to try not to have too many lanterns crammed, or light sources in general, crammed into one spot, like this for example. Over here I'd recommend just deleting the lanterns over there, like that. Uh, you can obviously do whatever you want really. This is just tips and tricks. But like I said, yeah, make sure that your builds aren't so squashed, because you know you want to have like a good amount of detail but not too much, because then it's just gonna come an eyesore. But adding a few blocks can really benefit your builds. Now the last tip is what I call the three amigos, which is the stairs, the slab, and the stairs, the trapdoor, and the slab. These three, as you can see, are very very prominent in detail. As you can see, they all match together, and I made a few mock-ups over here, as you can see, like this, like this, and like this, and you can do them in practically any pattern you want. Let's do, for example, this, and it's gonna bridge off into, it's like a gradient. You can see like it gets smaller or it gets bigger as it continues, and it makes a really really nice flow for the eye. You can see over here, maybe you can have that in front of your door, or covering a beehive or something like that. Or you can even have, I don't know, something like this. I think we already built something like this. Yeah, we already built something like this. But yeah, there's a lot of patterns you can do, and even you can combine them with something like spruce log. You can have something like this, or even you can make them, I don't know, like this for a roof design. Let's see, like this, and it just generally helps. Like these three blocks are typically what I use the most whenever I'm building a spruce house, and I highly recommend using them a lot. And you can use them however you want. But yeah, that concludes this video. I tried making it as brief as possible. If you guys enjoyed, be sure to like and subscribe, and do comment if you guys enjoyed this video and you would like maybe some more tips and tricks like this, or maybe even like a full house design that I can give you a tutorial on. But yeah, thank you all for watching. I really do appreciate all of you watching, and have a great day, and I'll see you guys in the next one. See you, and bye bye.